And a very pleasant welcome to a Thursday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. Glad to have you guys with us. And we originate from sunny South Florida, which is always a pleasure as the rest of the country is freezing its collective ass off. And we're basking in some glorious sunshine here in the so called Sunshine State. Good to have you guys with us. A lot to talk to you guys about and many games to handicap for you. And we're going to get right into it as we'll be joined here in just a second by the great Mike Jones, who was good enough to substitute for Scotty M on the program for us on Tuesday. And I have since spoken with Mike. And this man is fired up. That's what I love about him. He is fired up about a lot of different things that happen in sports, one of which I think is going to trigger a reaction that will be so outrageous. We discussed this that it's good that we have Mike on because he's a diehard baseball fan. Now, if you aren't betting, and there's a game tonight of great intrigue, Packers and the Detroit Lions, also of great significance in terms of who might look like they reign supreme in the National Football League, especially the NFC. That game's in Detroit. Detroit decimated by injuries. They keep losing key guys. Packers coming on off that nice Thanksgiving Day victory over the Miami Dolphins, looking good. That line has just stayed steadily favoring the Detroit Lions at 3 and a hook. And that's a weird one because everybody I talk to loves Green Bay in this game. And you're asking yourself, how could every single person, like 100% unanimity, say they like one side, and yet the line stays steady in favor of the other side? But we shall see. Of course, Detroit at home in that ball game, and that would account for probably 3 of the 3.5 that the bookmakers are making the lineup. BetOnline continues to be, and this is the place to bet it, the world's most trusted betting platform. Your number one source, people, for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, if you were laying 3.5 with the Heat last night against the Lakers, pretty good about yourself. College basketball, we had the SEC-ACC Challenge. When did the SEC become the basketball conference? Unbelievable. 14-2. They pounded the ACC. NHL, UFC, a lot of boxing matches on tap. You might want to look into that. Head to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's all caps, BLEAV, BELIEVE, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. Mike Jones, we introduced Mike early here on the program because we have so many different things that we need to explore here on the show. I'm going to use a visual aid here for you people that are watching the video. This is the back page of this morning's New York Post, which says, idiotic, imbecilic, utterly moronic. This is a reaction. Now, you have to be kidding me. Rob Manfred, also known as Manfred Mann, has instituted any number of changes to Major League Baseball. Now, we know the George Wills, the so-called baseball purists, are usually appalled when any new rule, any new thing is being administrated into the game. The most controversial, I guess, of which would be throwing a runner out there on second base when you get to extra innings in the regular season. Some people don't like it. I remember sitting through some 20-inning games at Shea Stadium when it was freezing cold in April and thinking, why don't we just get the fuck out of here? And so in the regular season, as much of a baseball purist as I might have been at one time, I'm not as appalled by that as I probably was when it was first introduced. I'm looking at it going, maybe in practicality it works. 162-game regular season. They take it out in the postseason when the games are more meaningful. And so I've learned to live with that change. But, Michael, and good morning to you, my friend. Thanks for joining us again this week in your regular slot here on Thursday. But this golden at bat, was that just something? Was Manfred on acid yesterday? Was he just trying to spark some headlines? They have enough attention being paid to the fact that Soto's still unsigned and the domino effect of free agency won't really begin until he signs with some club. Baseball winter meetings are ongoing. A lot of different speculation about what's going to happen. Did he really mean to suggest that at some point in a ball game, every team will be allowed to, and this used to happen in the Little League, where like Little Johnny would go up there and hit, and he was batting out of turn, and all of a sudden the game was under protest, and he was automatically out, and then he got cursed out by his father, and they would drive away screaming at each other. What do you mean? You weren't supposed to hit. You made the last out the last inning. You really see this happening, Mike? And as a longtime baseball fan, I mean, the idea that Shohei Ohtani could make the last out in the 8th inning and then bat second or third in the 9th inning seems preposterous. I mean, what do you make of that? He couldn't possibly, as John McEnroe would have said, You cannot be serious. I can't imagine that this is something that's going to be discussed any further than for people to universally say this is a ridiculous idea.
I heard Francesa go off on this, and it's going to take guys of our age to speak out more than it would. I think this had to come from Manfred's grandson or something. I mean, it just doesn't seem like there's any
Hey,
logic.
from space. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get it. But then again, I didn't get why they canceled the shift. When a team wants to put three guys on one side of the infield, hit the ball to the other side.
Yes.
You guys are all professional hitters. I mean, the runner on second thing, I knew they're trying to save arms. And then I talked to an old school college baseball coach, is a very close friend of mine, who, when Nolan Ryan got the job in Texas as president, he said he's dumping pitch counts. And he said it was the best thing he's ever heard. He thinks pitch counts are ridiculous. He knows what they mean, but he said guys just throw it. They're lifting weights. They're doing different things. Body parts are growing different. These are why the injuries occur, not because they're throwing 120 pitches in a game. And I think we get too conservative. We've seen it in the playoffs and other games where pitchers go like 85 pitches, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're worried about him. We're worried about him. But they've got one hit through six. Why would you take them out? So the philosophies are just different. The money's different. A lot more analytics in baseball than even other sports, which are all being driven in. Analytics and basketball and football are there, but not as prominent as we see as a baseball purist where it is. So I don't think it gets any traction. Doesn't make any sense. Just because you have a great player, they want to see the player 5 times. It might be a Dodgers rule because the Dodgers are going to have $10 billion on their payroll, and now they're going to need to keep all these guys up and playing to keep their fans happy that they're charging $1,000 for a bleacher seat. That's what's going to happen. That's the only way I can see it going, is that it's for the really good teams to just continue to win. And the Dodgers are figuring that out anyway. If they sign Soto, forget it. I mean, it's they might as well just write another ring to them if the way they go. They got Blake Snell. They picked up the best pitcher in the second half of baseball the other day. So I mean, what are we doing? Are we making the better teams better, or how? I mean,
It
that's
sabotages all of the basic tenets of the game, though, in terms
yeah.
of strategy, setup,
Yeah.
setting up your batting order.
Mm-hmm.
And look, how many people that became heroes in the game of baseball would have never seen the plate if this rule was in existence in the past? You think they would have sent up Bucky Dent against Mike Torres in that Yankee Red Sox game? Or
Yeah.
you'd see some of the guys that made big names for themselves as World Series heroes coming up in big spots. And you have some weak hitting shortstop, and everybody's assuming he's going to be an automatic out, and he hits a home run. I remember when the Marlins here had a guy named Mike Mordecai, and
Yeah.
you were sure that they were doing their best to take any measure they could to lose ball games. And they would pinch run Mordecai for one of their best hitters, Miggy Cabrera, and they pinch run for Cabrera in the 8th inning, and sure enough, Mordecai would come up in a key spot in the 10th inning, but with a chance to win a game and hit a grand fucking slam.
Right.
And none of that stuff would happen. It's part of the
Right.
fascination of the game.
Right.
If they were
Yeah.
saying, hey, wait a minute, you can put anybody up in that
Yeah.
position. It seems utterly ridiculous. And the one good thing, I guess, that came, you mentioned Francesa, who I'm sure being a New York guy, you were a
Mhm.
fan of at one time, but
Right.
since the senility set in and his ideas proved to be wrong on virtually everything, if you wanted to book somebody's action, it would be Mike Francesa.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
You're a rich man today,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. We found something really quick, not to break subject, but
yeah,
he said something about the going for 2 at 14, how it annoyed him. That Dable should be fired for doing that. He didn't understand that the analytics are telling him that. So it's like, do your homework and realize why teams at 14 are going for 2, because there's 11% chance they're going to make it at 14 than they would if they win at 7 or 8 to tie or win the game. So I always laugh at some of these guys that just don't, that really don't understand how it works, where they're, they got to understand the analytics, a lot of this stuff. But this particular thing is
it
really
can't
happening.
It,
It's out there for me.
yeah.
So,
No, it seems utterly ridiculous, and yet it's drawing a lot of reaction. Francesa said he'd never watch another baseball game again. That may be the good thing.
yeah, right. Tired of listening about the Yankees and the
But
Mets.
but he'd still be, commenting on it, even if he
Yeah.
never watched any games, and probably very much off base.
Let me give you one other good story
Yeah.
real quick. One of my buddy who's a college coach told me this story, and I want to keep these names out of this. He told me at one point a few years ago that one of his friends who was managing was handed the lineup card, handed the pitching setup, and was told that was it. He didn't do anything. He just basically went around and was nice, as good personality to the players, and everything was orchestrated from upstairs. So these are the kind of things that baseball is doing to really fit. They're trying to figure out where they're going to get their next viewership from, kind of like, what I'm working on. Where are we going to get the next vision of where the future lies in every aspect of business. And I think that's what Major League Baseball is doing. And it's a weird thing. That makes zero sense to me. But again, the 18-year-old coming up might say, I get to have 6 at bats in a game because I get this golden bat. He might like it as a good hitter to make it better. I don't know.
As a guy that took great advantage of the fact that, especially in sandlot games, you always had the fat kid in right field as a right-handed hitter. I became very expert at hitting the ball the opposite way. I
Yep.
think it's one of the easiest things that you could
Yeah.
possibly do.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if a team wants to put 7 guys between
Yeah.
second and first base defensively. I don't know that you can legislate that out of the game. They did, and they made
Yeah.
these rules, and some people are satisfied that it's actually had a positive impact and
Yeah.
improved batting averages to a certain extent, put more guys on base. But
Yeah.
I don't think that should be something that is legislated out of the game. As you said, the way to defeat that is to teach somebody to just slap the ball the other way until they
Yeah.
can't do it anymore. It's just like every now and then you have to throw an occasional bomb if you're an NFL offense to keep the defense honest, that
Right.
they're not going to settle for everything underneath, and they can't all of a sudden pack everybody either close to the box or within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and take away that possible advantage. But yeah, I think it's really brutal that that would even be suggested. I guess we're talking about it, so maybe that makes it good.
Yeah.
But do you want to be spoken of in terms of being a lunatic or on a lunatic fringe? It's kind of like your two ex-wives might get together and talk about you, but in most cases, that's not going to be in a particularly flattering light. So
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
believe-
it's a good thing that this is the discussion today. The other thing that struck me, Mike, before we get into some selection,
Sure.
we got a big game tonight. Very interesting proposition there with the Packers and the Lions, 2 excellent teams in the NFC, and we'll see if the Lions, being decimated by injuries, constantly losing key players, is eventually going to catch up with them. They've been able to still streak out there to that 11-1 record, and the Packers are 9-3. But having spent about 45 years in doing sports talk shows here in South Florida, I remember one of the big debates. So it was whether or not it was advantageous. This is years ago, for the University of Miami, which was a powerhouse at that time between 1983 and 2000 and the early 2000s. The so-called decade of dominance was actually 2 decades of dominance. And there was this big debate. They had just kind of floated the basketball program back into creation. They hadn't really established much with it. They were looking to give that a little bit more luster. And so they opted to go to the ACC to enhance the basketball program's chances. And they figured every year when Florida State and UM went to the ACC, well, that'll be the battle for the ACC championship every year. Of course, the Hurricanes have never won the ACC football championship, which is a bit of a surprise. They have won the ACC basketball championship, but you always thought that the ACC was the basketball conference and the SEC was the football conference. How the fuck does the SEC win 14 of 16 games in the ACC-SEC Challenge, and one of those wins by the ACC was Duke last night. A pretty good ball game, very entertaining game. I watched a lot of it. But nonetheless, I mean, they knocked off the number 2 team in the country as Auburn came in there undefeated. Now, they were on the road, Auburn, and at Duke, I don't know that this was the overwhelming influence in the game, but you would have to say slightly favorable whistles go Duke's way. The ghost of Coach K.
Yeah.
Acting what's going on out there on the floor, and there were a couple of calls there that could have really made the difference in the ball game, and they all went Duke's way in this one. Duke, I think, acquitted itself very well and would have won the ball game anyway, but without outrageous imbalance in officiating. But nonetheless, when did the SEC? I guess what they have the money there. They're getting all the marquee coaches, and they're able to pay these guys through NIL more money than what was once the prestigious league to perform in for a lot of high school players that were being recruited, and people always wanted to transfer into the ACC. Not the case anymore. What were you on this? Did you realize that the ACC was going to get hammered in these games?
Well, I didn't think it would be 14-2 or whatever it was, and here's my thought on it. Just go back and look at preseason in the offseason, that the move of John Calipari, take off of Kentucky, go to Arkansas. I know for a fact that Tyson Foods, Walmart, tons of money, dump it into the Arkansas program. Biggest, Arkansas is going to have huge NIL. You got to watch their football team program moving up, in the next couple of years, maybe if they move Sam Pittman out and they get like these schools, as LSU was big. My buddy was telling me how the baseball is working, where some of these schools like LSU and Arkansas are dumping big money into their baseball programs. This is what's going to happen. And I think you're seeing it right now that the SEC just cares more about these sports, and all this than getting the bigger boosters and put money in, because that's what I saw. When the first thing I saw when that was a result, I said, well, reason why I watched SEC, being an SEC guy, being in this area, and now I see it. I like watching Miami's basketball. I loved them when they got to the 4 when FAU was there. It was so exciting to get into all those games. You just look around at easy transfer portals, who's going to throw the money at it, and these kids are going to go. And that to me was
very fearful.
That to me is the big thing.
Yeah, sorry about that. And he was very fearful that this NIL was going to. Well, it did. It's vitally transformed what's going on the college gridiron and the hoop courts as well. But I thought that was a misprint on the crawl. I'm watching the game on ESPN. It says SEC 9, ACC 1, and then the final tally was 14-2. And I remember having all those conversations from people calling in, going, "Hey, can you believe this? I mean, the ACC is a basketball conference."
Right.
Sure enough, that landscape has changed dramatically. The other thing, too, it would have been nice, and I don't know what kind of price you could have gotten on this, but what were the odds that LeBron James would miss 20 consecutive three-point tries during the course of any season? He was 0 for his last 19 coming into a game last night against the Miami Heat, where the Lakers were thoroughly embarrassed, losing by 40-plus points, so 134-93, 41 points. A lot of franchise records were established in this game by the Miami Heat. It was one of their biggest margins of victory ever. They had 42 assists in the game. They made 24 threes, which tied a franchise record, and Tyler Hero hit 7 straight threes in the third quarter. Holy Rex Chapman against the Chicago Bulls. What are we talking about here? And the Lakers, who lost by 30 points, I believe, the game before, all of a sudden found themselves getting hammered again, like the clubbing of seals. But I think LeBron missed his first shot, his first three-point attempt, and might have made his second. Otherwise, and we're not used to this guy establishing records for infamy, but he was challenging the record of 21 consecutive missed threes that was established by R.J. Barrett, former number 3 pick of your beloved New York Knicks.
Right.
You would not expect that to be a category that you would find LeBron James' name prominently listed there at number 2 all time.
Now, the thing that I saw when I woke up this morning and saw the result, I said, let me flip on ESPN and see what they're covering it, because they're all the LeBron James lovers. And then all of a sudden, the first 6 moves LeBron James is doing is getting to the basket, dunking, and do whatever. LeBron's doing this to keep him close. LeBron's doing this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't this game end 40 points? Didn't something happen here? And then they show that stat, and then they show Tyler Hero going off. And then the next thing you see is J.J. Redick complaining about, I'm not getting on my guys, but we need to take some responsibility for what we're showing on the court. But I'm not attacking my players. And then they go to LeBron. He says, whatever JJ said, whatever JJ said, whatever JJ said. There's something going on where the NBA game, and this is coming from old guys, we watch college basketball. We've talked about, you and I, about what the March Madness is like, the tournament and all that. The NBA's better shape up their product. I've had these discussions with people about the NBA that if it wasn't for betting, where would they be? They have this in-season tournament now that's coming out next week where 8 teams are going to vie for a trophy and ends up in Vegas. They're trying to do anything to keep it. But what they ought to do is look at their product. They're worried about contact and fouling and guys, it hurts and, and this and that. But just running down, there was a sequence that I watched for 2 minutes on a clip on X where the Lakers were playing the Suns and nobody took the ball inside the 3-point line for like 4 or 5 possessions. And they missed. And Reggie Miller and Kevin Harlan are talking about this, like, he missed the shot. Oh, he did. And it was the Saints, it was the Suns and the Lakers. And that was part of LeBron's streak. And I'm sitting there going, what am I watching? Like, how do I teach a 10-year-old how to play the game when the NBA puts out this kind of play where they're just shooting threes and no one wants contact and you're hardly defending? And last night, one of the NBA analysts on ESPN said 66% of the Heat shots were open. They weren't even contested. No. So when you do that, you're just sending a message, and the grind, and LeBron's 40, and he's the leader of the team. But I look at Anthony Davis's box score. It's like 8, 5, and 7. Like, you come into Miami to play in a popular city, fun place to play, and this is what you put up. So there's something going on with the Lakers. I don't think it's J.J. Redick, but I think sometimes when the leadership goes off the rails, and you never know what you might see. But it was pretty rough to watch. But great as a Heat fan to go out there and steamroll the Lakers, who beat you in the finals a few years back. So you a little bit of mini revenge, I guess.
If that was Allen Iverson, you would immediately attribute that to the South Beach factor, which
Right.
I've said for years that the best six man in the NBA is South Beach in Miami. Well, the
Yeah.
team comes to town and they get in at 3 in the morning and they go out.
Yeah. Ask Eugene Robinson that question.
Show up in a body bag for the shoot around
Right.
the next day.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that of Anthony Davis. He doesn't strike.
Right. No, not at all. It doesn't go
He
strike
did a
me as
vanishing
a
act
person.
in this ball
Right.
game, and
Yeah.
it was out of control early in the second quarter, and it just continued to
Yeah.
escalate and become more and more exasperating for J.J. Redick after that. But the Lakers, surprisingly, even after these two absolute horseshit performances, still have a winning record. But it would have
Right.
felt good if you took the Heat.
Yeah.
3.5 in that ball game. That's
Right.
one of those games that you're lighting up a cigar. You're like Red Auerbach very early
Right.
on as you see the way the flow of the game was going. LeBron, I think, scored the first 6 Laker points
Yep.
in the contest, but they found themselves like trailing 17-6 shortly after that. So a lot of interesting stuff. Now, I don't know if this is going to be one of your selections, but the Green Bay Packers and the Lions game tonight. I'm curious if you're into this at all, Mike Jones, and that is, and my son has been doing this. Betting as part of his 9-component parlays that he's putting $5 on, the first person to score a touchdown. That's a very popular bet.
Yep.
But I think it's near impossible to handicap because
Yeah.
not only do you have to figure out which team is going to score a touchdown 1st,
Mhm.
which is difficult enough. It's like picking the side. But then on top of that, you have to figure which of maybe 5 or 6 guys is going to be the guy that scores that touchdown.
Right.
You don't know the circumstances under which it's going to transpire, whether it's going to be a quarterback sneak from the half-yard line or a throw from 70 yards away. Very tough to peg. Are you inclined to make these kind of wagers? Because I find myself, and maybe this is a weakness on my part, but I find myself now getting caught up in the idea of trying to predict what the outcome of those bets is going to be.
Right. And you obviously got two teams, so you have a slate of players, usually 5 or 6 that get reasonable lines that can score the touchdown, the quarterback, maybe a running back, the tight end, 2 or 3 wide receivers. You don't pick a
Terry, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so I don't particularly, but on a Super Bowl, I might look at it and grab it because the history of dealing with props started with one game in the Super Bowl. So
Yes.
you would get this bet, and it was put out there on the front sheet. I quick story. I could go back. I'm in Vegas, and all of a sudden I see in the Chicago Bears Indianapolis Colts Super Bowl with my host, and I go, you know what I should just do? Let me just put $1,000 on Devin Hester scoring the first touchdown in the Super Bowl. He can return the opening kick for a touchdown.
Sure.
So I'm playing all week, and I say it right to us. I'm in the book. I said, but I'm going to play all week, lose a little bit of money, so now I don't make my prop bets. And we're watching a kickoff together at the party, and he just looks at me. He goes, "You don't have it, do you?" I said, "No." Hester scores a touchdown, and I said, "There you go, another one of the great misses." I open my big mouth when I get to Vegas and say, "I'm going to make this bet," and don't. So you also have that component of it, a special teams touchdown, anything. So to me, and you don't know if those odds are really fair. They're probably a lot lower. So I wouldn't intend to put that. But the interesting part is that be careful because if you put it in a same game parlay, make sure you only to pick one guy. Don't pick a second guy because you're a loser. So it's like it's just tough. But I don't particularly play that, but I do look at it, periodically if I go and see something. So
It's kind of like a guy that has a duplicate ticket on a Rainbow Pick 6,
yeah.
where you need the unique ticket.
Yeah.
And, he's canceled himself out. All right, so is this a game that you want to handicap for us?
I'll go into it because it's the night game. It's the big
Yeah.
game. I find that Detroit is missing a few of their front linemen, defensive linemen, and I'm going to bring that topic up a little later with another game I'm handicapping. And I think that could be part of the whole. You got the revenge factor, the injuries. Taylor Decker's now announced out, although they're getting 2 corners back. Carlton Davis is coming back, and Mosley's coming back for Detroit. So they get a little bit on the back end, lose a little bit up front. DJ Reader won't play. Does Josh Jacobs have that game? You got to kind of look at it from a Josh Jacobs standpoint, where his props come. That might be a prop I would look at to see your total yards. I just like the revenge factor, like that they beat him there last year. When does Detroit fall? Is there going to be a game coming up? They have to win because Minnesota's right on their tail. They have another game with Minnesota and Detroit, so they can handle it that way. It's just got a sneaky suspicion this is going to be a little bit closer than than the 3.5. I kind of like the hook. I don't know if I bet it at 3, so I'm not in love with the game, but I would lean Packers. I think you're going to see points tonight. So maybe the Packers team total with something. I might advise with somebody that was looking at it to say maybe we're only going to have to get 3 less, or we're probably looking at a 24-point total. That might happen, but we'll see. But a little lean toward the Packers tonight.
And over-under is 51 on a hook, so
Right.
people are expecting sparks to fly in this one, and
Right.
let's hope it turns out to be as entertaining as it appears to be on the surface as you're looking at this matchup. A
Mhm.
very attractive Thursday night matchup and a meaningful ball game at the top of the heap when it comes to the NFC. All right, what do you have for us this week? Because a lot of stuff going on. I
Yeah,
know.
I like championship week in college football. This is always a fun week. You get down to where you can really concentrate. There's only 6 games, not 60. So you're figuring out which ones you like to do. Usually going to main conferences, and I'll start out with the ACC, SMU. Who would have thought? We have the Arizona State factor, the Pac-12 winning the Big Ten. We have the Pac-12 winning the big, the Big 12. So you have 2 Pac-12 teams that have won their division regular season. Texas, the big old bad SEC, the Big 12 team comes in and takes the regular season the SEC. So I'm looking, does SMU as an AAC team go into the ACC and really have played the competition they want? The one loss was BYU, who they lost to. I kind of think this could be Clemson got a little revival. They lose their rivalry game, then they wake up and 4 hours later they find out they're going to play for an ACC championship. One and done only shot. There's rumors now and discussions that I've had with people who are in the know and know what's going on that SMU with a loss might not get eliminated. They still have a chance to stay in it. Do they want to only have one ACC team? So from what we're having and listening to the people at ESPN, I'm like, wow, okay, so that might give a little bit of a less. The guy gets nicked up. Do they pull him out thinking they're going to make the tournament? Who knows? I know they probably want to win. I just like Clemson in the spot as a dog. Local game in Charlotte. They'll have a good fan base there. I think getting the break. I like their quarterback, the way he's playing. I think he's playing very well. It was a high recruit. And, I'll look at the help, but I like Clemson in this spot.
All right, and by the way, our 8-1 on Miami went up in smoke immediately when
Right.
we talked
Right.
on Tuesday about that being a pretty good thing to take a look at. And
Right.
of course, the rankings came out and they factored in the Cristobal factor. And at 10-2, Miami somehow slipped behind a team that just got clobbered by an unranked Oklahoma team. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Saban metrics, but nonetheless, Alabama leapfrogged Miami, and it looks like that puts Miami out because you're going to get what the Big 12 champion is going to get in there. So,
And what we got to watch on this, Jeff, is where they're going to schedule games in the future from a gambling standpoint early on. Shane Beamer came out. We were talking about this last night, a buddy of mine. Shane Beamer came out and said exactly what my buddy said. Why would you schedule tough NC opponents if you're in the SEC anymore to risk a loss outside conference when you're going to beat each other up?
Sure.
So you're going to have to look at how good you kind of really, evaluate whether the 3-loss SEC team is worth it instead of a 1-loss Big Ten team if the 8 teams in the Big Ten on their schedule really aren't, up to, the quality of what you would see down south. So, yeah, that's definitely something that Miami probably they looked at their losses, and that they didn't have any big wins because of the schedule they made. You can't, these schedules are made years in advance. Maybe they can get one game and add it to it. So you just don't know. And we're South Carolina guys, as here, and their 3 losses were LSU without their quarterback, and people were making a case. I heard Todd Luganville making a case about that without Sellers, if he would play the whole game, they probably would have beat LSU, lost by a field goal. And if they have 2 losses, they're in. But you can't put them ahead of Mississippi because Mississippi blew them out. So you had all this jumping around. But I was surprised to see Miami fall the way they did. And the Bama thing is just so interesting. Like, guys who they're conspiracy theorists that even the ghost of Saban, you're not going to have a tournament without Alabama. They've always been in. So, it's kind of where I think that all fits in.
Yeah, and the fact that Miami would have gotten a more serious challenge from the FAMU band than they did from its football team.
That's right.
I mean, those guys, some big fat tuba player used to have to run the gauntlet there where they paddle the guy as he walked onto the school bus, and like 20 guys would knock him out. And unfortunately, one of the players one of the band members actually ended up dying from this ridiculous form of torture. But I mean, the Miami schedule was as soft as my scrambled eggs were this morning. All right, couple of minutes left. So
real quick, I'll go back to the Big Ten. Really like what I see out of Oregon. Love the quarterback, little undersized for an NFL player, but I think he's very good. He's been successful everywhere he's been. I'm not sure Penn State. overtime win against USC, 2-touchdown win against Illinois early on in the year. Not a really good seed schedule. I was debating with somebody, does Penn State stay in with a loss? But you can't fault the team for making a conference title. I like Oregon big here. I just think they're clearly the better team. I love their defense. I love what Dan Lanning is doing there. I think they have the better personnel. They look really, really fast, a little bit faster than Penn State. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a touchdown or two win for Oregon.
All right. You have Oregon, you have Clemson, and you got one more?
Yep, beloved Giants. Let's go. We're going to look at this game Sunday. I've been studying this game. Giants are missing Dexter Lawrence. We also know the Bobby Okereke. So the two best enforcers on defense probably won't play in this game. Definitely Lawrence will not. I also see that they're missing their two tackles, which are young and experienced. And I'm not really sure if they're really high-quality NFL players, are also nicked up. We picked up a guy off the practice squad of the Rams. So now I look at this like, how are we going to stop the run? I don't know if we can. New Orleans has been in most games. They're getting healthier. They're going to miss Taysom Hill, but they get the receivers back, Carr's back. I love Alvin Kamara in this game, so if you're taking a prop, I would say look at him, yards rushing and receiving. Banks isn't playing. Without the linebackers, without the tacklers, put a lot of pressure on our secondary, which is our weakest part of our team. I like New Orleans in this game -5. I hate laying 5 with a 4-8 team on the road just because anything can happen. Drew Lock gets a whole practice. I'm happy that Dable decided to go with Drew Lock and not Tommy DeVito. No offense to the Italian listeners out there. But it was just, I just feel like New Orleans is definitely the better team, and I think they probably win and cover here.
All right, excellent, Mike. Should be a lot of fun. Very entertaining game tonight. Good seeing you the other day, and glad you got in touch with those people from Greenlight. We'll see if anything evolves from that. Always a pleasure. Thanks for filling in on Tuesday, and great talking to you again this morning here on Bury Your Bookie.
Thanks.
All right, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I feel obligated to pass this along because we mentioned a guy that we refer to as a football guy, a good friend of mine and I. He sends out a couple of games a week on the season, and this is for real. This is reality. Now 19-5 after a 1-1 week. He went down with the Dolphins on Thanksgiving Day last week. The football guy's 2 picks. He has SMU, so he's going against Mike Jones on that one. He likes SMU -2 and a hook, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their contest. They are laying 6.5 to the Raiders. So this guy, 19-5 on the season against the point spread, been phenomenal, and he's touting SMU -2.5 and Tampa Bay -6.5. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. It should be a lot of fun. A professor will be joining us. He'll have some insight into all of these college football games that are on tap here. Going to be a sensational weekend all the way around with a lot to be decided. We thank you so much for joining us. For the people at Bet Online and NoFilter.net, Greenlight Ventures, I'm Jeff DeForrest, and hoping that everybody puts their bookie in a casket as we'll join you next time on the next episode of Bury Your Bookie.